लाइफ में लेना देना तो चलता रहता है। इधर फ्लेक्सी लोन से बोरो कर लिया और उधर बाय मॉम डैड का वेकेशन डन। शादी का डिसीजन लिया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से और बोरो किया। प्रमोशन मिला तो ये लो थोड़ा लोन वापस कर दिया, थैंक यू। नए इंटीरियर्स का दिल किया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से फिर थोड़ा ले लिया। ईयर एंड बोनस मिला तो इस बार लोन ज्यादा वापस कर दिया। लाइफ में लेना देना चलता रहेगा तो लोन्स में क्यों नहीं। इसीलिए फ्लेक्सी लोन फ्रॉम बजाज फिनसर्व एक ऐसा लोन जो जब चाहे बोरो करे, जैसे चाहे रीपे करे, वो भी चुटकी में। थिंक इट डन विद बजाज फिनसर्व।
हेलो, हर सीजन के लिए नए इंटीरियर्स?
हाँ, वो भी हर रूम के लिए।
फ्रिज, स्मार्टफोन या बड़ा टीवी?
तीनों क्यों नहीं?
अरे ये तो शॉपिंग लिस्ट में नहीं था।
सो अब शॉपिंग कार्ट में तो है। सॉरी।
अच्छा, नए आउटफिट्स की विश लिस्ट।
विश क्यों? Just add to cart and buy.
तो ये सब EMI पे?
और वो भी चुटकी में। On India's fastest growing EMI network. Think it done with Bajaj Finserv.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
माँ के बेडरूम का एसी या लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई। पुणे, पटना, चेन्नई, मथुरा या फिर बेगूसराय,
या फिर बेगूसराय।
नए घर के लिए चाहिए 4K टीवी हाई फाई, या फिर वाइफ को चाहिए लेटेस्ट स्टाइल। EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
मॉड्यूलर किचन में पुराना फ्रिज क्यों है भाई?
शादी है नहीं, मैट्रेस पुराना है भाई। अक्खा इंडिया बोले भाई प्राइजेस है हाई। बेस्ट ही खरीदना है तो अपने EMI स्टोर पर आए।
EMI है ना, EMI।
अब काशी हो या वाशी, महंगा लगे तो EMI और बेस्ट ही चाहिए तो भी EMI, क्योंकि बजाज फिनसर्व का EMI है ना। विजिट www.emistore.com।
EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
नाची 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 नाची। धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। नाची 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 नाची। इंश्योरेंस फ्रॉड से बचना है बहुत जरूरी जी। नाची 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 नाची। वो एजेंट है या फ्रॉड पता लगाओ जी। एक्स्ट्रा ऑफर के झांसे में कहीं फंस ना जाओ जी।
अगर कोई अनजान कॉलर इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी डिटेल्स मांगे तो कह देना उनको।
नाची 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 नाची।
मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी। Always verify the caller and do not surrender your insurance for attractive offers. हमेशा सावधान रहे, safe रहे. Issued in the interest of public awareness by Bajaj Finserv.
नाची 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 नाची। धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। नाची 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 नाची। जो होगा सो होगा, ऐसे ना सोचो जी। नाची
कह देना उनको। मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी।
Being a hero is all about heart. It's not about ruling the world. It's about owning it. It's not about winning a race. It's about delivering a smile to the human race. It's about a spirit that just cannot be confined by geographies. It's about the heart that beats for the future and a soul that echoes the values of generations. And yet, being a hero is never about the hero. It's about the millions who celebrate them. Hero Motorcorp, the motorcycle leader. There's a gush of wind that hums a sweet song. There's a gush of wind that fights like a hero to fill the world with possibility. There's a gush of wind that jumps across oceans and mountains, embracing the entire planet. There's a gush of wind that blows away darkness. There's a gush of wind that blows for humanity. Because at Hero, we care.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Is about delivering excellence across business sectors. Is about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. today is always about more than just today. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata. Leadership with trust.
Behold, the story of victory, of life over malady. Behold the saga of power, of science over sickness. Behold the tale of triumph, of dedication over disease. Behold the rise and rise of Catalan Pharmaceuticals Limited, one of India's largest privately held pharmaceutical companies based out of Ahmedabad, Gujarat, India. Catalan Pharmaceuticals was born out of the vision of a legend who left an indelible mark in the chronicles of Indian pharmaceuticals industry. He was Indravadan Ambalal Modi, the founder chairman of the company, rightfully christened as the medicine man of India. His vision to alleviate pain of the underprivileged through research-driven innovations has been driving Catalan Pharmaceuticals for more than 6 decades now. Innovations which are backed by the key strengths of the company, the state-of-the-art manufacturing and research facilities. The flagship manufacturing facility at Dholka, Gujarat, sprawls over 100 acres. This avant-garde facility is US FDA approved, besides meeting most of the stringent quality standards across the globe. It manufactures tablets, capsules, injectables, liquids, and orals. The second formulations manufacturing facility is located at Samba in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The API facilities at Ankleshwar, Gujarat, manufacture a large number of key APIs and intermediates at this US FDA and ISO 9002 and ISO 14001 accredited plant. The company also has set up its first ever overseas formulation manufacturing facility at Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. This world-class facility is the only WHO CGMP compliant manufacturing facility in the region. More than 850 products spread across 12 specialties with many of India's top brands in its basket. Great goals are defined by far-sighted vision and achieved by seamless teamwork. A multicultural, multilingual and multinational workforce of over 7,000 employees is truly the propelling power of the company. Not just in the domestic market, the company has a wide global footprint with over 1,000 marketing authorizations across 85 countries. Its international sales force of over 150 highly diversified and versatile personnel lends it an outreach that blankets the globe. As the company grows, so does its commitment to research. Manned by more than 350 scientists, the R&D facilities of Catalan Pharmaceuticals at Dholka, Gujarat is an institution of breakthrough innovations. To take the focus on innovation to the next level, it partners with leading international companies to discover newer treatments. The Catalan Pharmaceuticals group is gigantic. Its group companies complement and expand the dynamic vision of the company across new avenues of healthcare and newer fast-paced business areas. Catalan Pharmaceuticals is a gentle giant. Decades of dedicated research, groundbreaking healthcare innovations, and worldwide impact proves the infinite potential of one powerful emotion. Care. The success of Catalan Pharmaceuticals bears testimony to the fact that the care continues.
आने वाले कल की दस्तक हमें सुनाई देती है, नई मंजिल है जिस ओर हमें वो दिशा दिखाई देती है। नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए इंडिया का नया जोश, नए जोश से निकल पड़े हम, आने वाला कल होगा हमारा, नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
और नए इंडिया के सफर में टेक्नोलॉजी की शक्ति लेकर आपका भागीदार रहेगा रिलायंस। नए इंडिया का नया जोश।
लाइफ में लेना देना तो चलता रहता है। इधर फ्लेक्सी लोन से बोरो कर लिया और उधर बाय मॉम डैड का वेकेशन डन। शादी का डिसीजन लिया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से और बोरो किया। प्रमोशन मिला तो ये लो थोड़ा लोन वापस कर दिया, थैंक यू। नए इंटीरियर्स का दिल किया, फ्लेक्सी लोन से फिर थोड़ा ले लिया। ईयर एंड बोनस मिला तो इस बार लोन ज्यादा वापस कर दिया। लाइफ में लेना देना चलता रहेगा तो लोन्स में क्यों नहीं। इसीलिए फ्लेक्सी लोन फ्रॉम बजाज फिनसर्व एक ऐसा लोन जो जब चाहे बोरो करे, जैसे चाहे रीपे करे, वो भी चुटकी में। थिंक इट डन विद बजाज फिनसर्व।
हेलो, हर सीजन के लिए नए इंटीरियर्स।
हाँ, वो भी हर रूम के लिए।
फ्रिज, स्मार्टफोन या बड़ा टीवी,
तीनों क्यों नहीं?
अरे ये तो शॉपिंग लिस्ट में नहीं था।
सो अब शॉपिंग कार्ट में तो है। सॉरी।
अच्छा, नए आउटफिट्स की विश लिस्ट।
विश क्यों? Just add to cart and buy.
तो ये सब EMI पे?
और वो भी चुटकी में। On India's fastest growing EMI network. Think it done with Bajaj Finserv.
सर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। साहब, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता। हुजूर, अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान हो ही नहीं सकता।
अपनों को खुश रखना इससे आसान।
अपनों को खुशियां दिलाना आसान नहीं बनाते तो आगे कैसे बढ़ते। इसीलिए हम जो भी करते हैं उसे बेहतर बनाते आ रहे हैं, बनाते रहेंगे। बजाज फिनसर्व, थिंक इट डन।
माँ के बेडरूम का एसी या लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई, लेटेस्ट मोबाइल फॉर भाई। पुणे, पटना, चेन्नई, मथुरा या फिर बेगूसराय,
या फिर बेगूसराय।
नए घर के लिए चाहिए 4K टीवी हाई फाई, या फिर वाइफ को चाहिए लेटेस्ट स्टाइल। EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
मॉड्यूलर किचन में पुराना फ्रिज क्यों है भाई?
शादी है नहीं, मैट्रेस पुराना है भाई। अक्खा इंडिया बोले भाई प्राइजेस है हाई, बेस्ट ही खरीदना है तो अपने EMI स्टोर पर आए।
EMI है ना, EMI।
अब काशी हो या वाशी, महंगा लगी तो EMI और बेस्ट ही चाहिए तो भी EMI, क्योंकि बजाज फिनसर्व का EMI है ना। विजिट www.emistore.com।
EMI है ना, EMI है ना, EMI।
नाची 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 नाची। धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। नाची 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 नाची। इंश्योरेंस फ्रॉड से बचना है बहुत जरूरी जी। नाची 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 नाची। वो एजेंट है या फ्रॉड पता लगाओ जी। एक्स्ट्रा ऑफर के झांसे में कहीं फंस ना जाओ जी।
अगर कोई अनजान कॉलर इंश्योरेंस पॉलिसी डिटेल्स मांगे तो कह देना उनको मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी। Always verify the caller and do not surrender your insurance for attractive offers. हमेशा सावधान रहे, safe रहे. Issued in the interest of public awareness by Bajaj Finserv.
धोखा है धोखा, धोखा ना खाओ जी। जो होगा सो होगा, ऐसे ना सोचो जी। कॉल पे कोई पूछे OTP दो ना जी,
तो कह देना उनको
मिलके स्कैम को एंड करो, हमेशा सेफ रहो जी।
Being a hero is all about heart. It's not about ruling the world. It's about owning it. It's not about winning a race. It's about delivering a smile to the human race. It's about a spirit that just cannot be confined by geographies. It's about the heart that beats for the future and a soul that echoes the values of generations. And yet, being a hero is never about the hero. It's about the millions who celebrate them. Hero Motorcorp, the motorcycle leader. There's a gush of wind that hums a sweet song. There's a gush of wind that fights like a hero to fill the world with possibility. There's a gush of wind that jumps across oceans and mountains, embracing the entire planet. There's a gush of wind that blows away darkness. There's a gush of wind that blows for humanity. Because at Hero, we care.
In 1868, the Tata Group was founded on a philosophy that put the community at the heart of its existence. Today, we are $100 billion global enterprise. Our today has been built on enduring values. Is about delivering excellence across business sectors. about building a future-ready nation. Our today has a strong foundation with community at its core. Our today is dedicated to the communities we serve. Our today is always about more than just a day. Our today is a continuous journey for a better tomorrow. Tata, leadership with trust.
Behold, the story of victory, of life over malady. Behold the saga of power, of science over sickness. Behold the tale of triumph, of dedication over disease. Behold the rise and rise of
seconds. So we may now begin. I will introduce you. We are live on YouTube.
Okay, do you want to start off, Varun? We have
Yes.
2 minutes to go. If you want to start, I'm comfortable and we have everybody here. But if you want to go ahead, go ahead. If you want to wait for a minute or two, that's fine. But if you want to start off. I'm set.
Okay, let's start. A very warm welcome to all the delegates. A very warm welcome to all the delegates and all the audience who are watching us today. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whichever part of the world you are. I'm Varun Akhnur. I head the Center of Excellence for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Startups at CII. Today we have a panel here, and I would like to introduce you to the moderator, Mr. Kiran Karnik, who is the chairman for CII National Committee on E-commerce. He's also the former president of NASSCOM and is the chairperson of Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology at Delhi. He is widely recognized for his work in the IT sector. As I mentioned, he is the president of NASSCOM from 2001 to 2008, and for helping to put the fraud hit Satyam Computers back on track as chairperson of its government-appointed board. He has been on many key government committees, including the Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister and the National Innovation Council. As CEO of Discovery India from 1995 to 2001, he launched Discovery Channel and Animal Planet in India and South Asia. He was founder director of Consortium for Educational Communication, which oversaw production and transmission of UGC's countrywide classroom programs. He began his career in the Department of Atomic Energy and spent over 2 decades in ISRO, focusing on applications of space technology, especially for education and development, including the path-breaking Indo-US satellite instructional TV experiment and the KEDA TV project. He has also worked in the United Nations in New York and Vienna and for UNESCO in Afghanistan. Currently, he is the chairperson for Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology, Delhi, and HelpAge India, and is also involved with a number of other non-for-profit organizations in the field of education and development. Earlier, he was the chairperson of Oxfam India and President India Habitat Center. He was a director on board of Reserve Bank of India and chaired its IT subsidiary. Mr. Karnik has been conferred with many awards, including the Padma Shri. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
Thank you, Varun. Good evening to all the participants from India in this session. And good evening to all those east of here. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody in other time zones west of India. Pleasure to be here moderating this session and delighted to be here as part of this Partnership Summit done by CII. The theme is really on the new world, which is on growth, competitiveness, sustenance, and technology, sustainability and technology. This is the 27th edition of CII's Partnership Summit. I want to extend a very special and warm welcome to our speakers today. We have a very eminent lineup, and you'll hear them shortly. We could have met physically in better times. Things are hopefully getting better, but we don't know yet, so fingers crossed. The advantage, of course, of such virtual meetings is that we get participation from around the world, those who don't want to or can't travel, and also the fact that we can get in speakers of the caliber we have. And I know how busy people on the speakers panel today are. Many of them would not have been able to come had we insisted on a physical meeting. So to that extent, there are advantages of being in the virtual world. Never have we seen this more than in the terrible years of the peak of the pandemic around the world, and especially in India, where we went through a very, very difficult part. All of us survived on the digital world for everything from essentials, groceries, medicines, to bit of socializing, which to me also is essential for your emotional health, to entertainment. So indeed, it was a fabulous time in terms of what you could do in the digital space, a terrible time physically. It also brought out a very interesting aspect of what you could do in the digital world, and not really new technologies. It's really the older technologies which existed for a while, but suddenly, because people were locked in, they began to see this. We had a burst of entrepreneurship in India, possibly in other countries, of a new breed of what you might call social entrepreneurs. I know people with very small shops, the shops were shut down because nobody would go there, who suddenly discovered that through WhatsApp, they could get to their customers whose numbers they had, expand the base of customers, and as long as they could arrange delivery, get somebody to go and deliver, they were back in business. Shops that had closed down, small little, corner mom and pop stores who had closed down and were having a terrible time with no business in the pandemic, suddenly rediscovered a start to business again, thanks to the digital world. We had other entrepreneurs, home chefs who delivered food, maybe in just one condominium, one set of houses. We had people who went online, not for education, which is old, but for things like music classes or cooking classes. And suddenly people rediscovered talents that they never had. So some advantages, but yet we miss out on the physical in many ways. And I mentioned this not from the point of view of what happened in the pandemic alone, but from the point of view of two elements that are key to our discussions today. One is the aspect of social impact, what this does. The other is the world of technology. And I mentioned social impact of small things like a mobile phone and WhatsApp. And I do a lot of work with an organization that works with vegetable vendors and street vendors who are really selling vegetables on the street. And it's amazing to see how they've begun to use these new technologies for business, not for their other needs alone, but for business. And it's truly a revolution that is slowly taking place, which combines the best of how technology can work in the social sphere with what it can do for inclusiveness and helping people earn livelihoods. So build back better is the theme, and hopefully we will begin to get there. Just want to add a few things about our theme for this session. This theme is around social entrepreneurship, crafting change. Social entrepreneurs have been around for a while in terms of doing impact things, but the combination of creating a social impact and making it business worthy has always been difficult. Even today, it's no easier, but today we have some excellent examples from around the world of how it's possible to do this, how it's possible to actually make a business of doing good. And this is important because it not only ensures sustainability, but ensures expansion, helps growth and creates jobs. To that extent, I think these are critical aspects of what we might discuss as we go ahead. In India, we've been fortunate. The government has been very, very encouraging of startups and of trying to see how they can promote social impact, even as we promote inclusion and inequity reduction. And to that extent, there is more funding available for such ventures. But yet it's a challenge. It's not easy because to create social impact with understanding and really truly create an impact and yet see how you can make it a business proposition is very, very difficult. There are some people who are doing this, and innovation to me is the key for doing this, because if you can do disruptive innovation using technology, which is why I started with technology, then you have immense possibilities of what you might do. Just wanted to make those few remarks and move on very quickly to our speakers. As I said earlier, we have a very eminent group of speakers here, and I want to make sure we give them enough time. I've requested each of them to speak for initially, just make some remarks, 3-4 minutes. If it's 3 minutes, it's great. We can do more of other things. Following that, in terms of the format we'll follow, following their comments, I will ask each of them 1 or 2 questions, depending on time, maybe less, maybe more. After that, we'll open up for questions from all of you on the floor, the audience, and spend some time on that. And finally, we'll wrap up. We want to make sure we end by 7:30. So let me quickly move to our first speaker. But just one mention before that for our audience. Mr. Rajesh Agarwal, Secretary for the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurship, who was to join us today and be one of the speakers, has unfortunately had a sudden exigency and is unable to join us today. So he's conveyed his apologies. But we'll move on to other speakers. And I want to start with Judith Mckenna. Judith is the CEO, President and CEO of Walmart International. Indeed, Ms. McKenna, pleasure to have you with us. I won't spend more time introducing you because I know that all participants would love to hear you rather than hear me speaking about you. But please, if you can mention a sentence or two about yourself as an introduction, and then we'd love to hear your comments and remarks on this theme. Over to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Karthik. I am, yes, Judith Mckenna. I lead Walmart's international businesses, which operate over 24 countries around the globe, including responsibility for the businesses that we invest in India as well. So thank you to everybody for inviting me to be part of this incredibly important discussion today. It's an honour to join everybody, and special thanks go to the CII and the Ministry of Commerce and Industry for this invitation to speak. Personal thanks from us go to Minister Piyush Goyal for chairing the summit, Mr. T.V. Narendran for his leadership as the industry co-chair of the summit, and also Mr. Karnik, thank you for moderating. Your opening comments were incredibly insightful. I will just say a few opening comments, and I'll start, if I may, by just saying this is an extraordinary time for an entire generation. The pandemic has impacted so many people around the globe and here in India, We have 140,000 associates in the country, and I just want to thank them for the way that they have responded to care for each other and their communities, true social entrepreneurship in many ways, as so many people have across the country. But one of the consequences of the situation that we see is that the pandemic has reinforced this potential of social entrepreneurship. In fact, it's actually reinforced, we think, the need for it. And that's about how businesses work across a broad spectrum of interests that benefit their customers, associates, suppliers, communities, and the environment. And one of the ways we use to describe that is to be impact driven. And that's part of our DNA. Sam Walton, who is an incredible entrepreneurial founder, had a vision for this company that it would positively impact all of those who have an interest in our business and the communities in which we operate. And we strive to carry that torch still today. It's part of the culture of how we do business. And thinking about business, as business leaders, we often focus on the pandemic for the challenges it created. But as you pointed out, despite those challenges, we've also seen incredible signs of India's enterprising spirit accelerating through COVID. And I hope that when the world looks at India, they see what we see, which is an extraordinary public commitment to make a digital economy. We see a nation of entrepreneurs with a spirit that's hard to match. And we see an opportunity to support and build new businesses that can realize India's potential. Now, these three factors, investment, resilience, and opportunity, are a powerful recipe for growth for everyone. And we'd like to play our own small part in that story. If I think about impact, I often think of it on a number of dimensions. It includes our sourcing as Walmart, our commitment to growing Indian businesses through training and business support, and finally, the work we do through our foundation. The sourcing, Walmart has committed to expand its exports from India to $10 billion of made in India products each year by 2027. That's 10 billion each and every year. And we think this will open up global opportunities for MSMEs to strengthen communities and accelerate India's progress as a manufacturing destination that can export to the world. I actually love the phrase, make in India for the world. And I truly believe we can bring that to life. For training and support, Walmart has a program called Luivi, and Flipkart has a program called Samarth. The Samarth program is specifically for artisans and craftspeople to help them go digital and bring their products to every PIN code in India. More than 700,000 livelihoods are already supported by Samarth, and more than 5,000 MSMEs are set to graduate from Luivi. That's a really good example of that entrepreneurs going online and being able to sell to everywhere across India with the business support to be able to do that. We're also seeing ways that data can enable growth for businesses, and PhonePe launched Pulse, which makes anonymized data on over 20 billion UPI transactions available for free to help people and businesses understand their ventures built on the insights of that incredible payments ecosystem in India. And finally, there is the work that the Walmart Foundation is doing to improve farmers and farmer producer organizations' market access capabilities. The goal here is to help farmers better control their own outcomes, and we're supporting that work with $25 million of commitment, which actually is designed to benefit more than 140,000 farmers, and crucially, more than half of those are women. My personal belief here is that for businesses to be successful in the future, wherever they operate in the world, they're going to have a positive social impact as part of their business model. Social entrepreneurship is part of, I think, who we are. The examples I've shared are in India, but I could find you examples right across the 24 countries in which we operate. But we'd also know that India is unique, and we're so very excited that we can be here and be part of the business, helping grow, and at the same time, create opportunities for small businesses, farmers, and communities to thrive. We know we can't do this alone as well, so we're proud to be a partner to so many on this journey, and thank you again for asking us to join today, and I look forward to the rest of the conversation. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mckenna. Very exciting to hear your plans for India, and particularly, resonate with your thought about how every business has to create social impact today in their own interest, in their own enlightened self-interest, you might say. I'm delighted also that you're working with so many small and micro businesses and farmers and taking Indian products out to the rest of the world, including craftsmen from small areas. We'll come back to you with more questions. And I'd like to now move on to our next speaker. And let me call on Ms. Karen Luivi. She's in Colombia, and she's going to join us from there. She's a second-generation entrepreneur running a large family business in Colombia. So over to you, Ms. Luivi.
You. Hello, everyone. Before I introduce myself, I want to tell you I feel very privileged today to be able to share my experience with CII members and being able to exchange thoughts with India. It's an incredible opportunity. My name is Karen Luebbe. I'm a graphic designer and video producer. That's what I went to college for, but I really consider myself a creative. I'm a songwriter. I write children music, and I design really whatever goes through my mind. My father was an immigrant from Austria, and he founded Sempertex, a balloon manufacturing company, more than 60 years ago. And we export to more than 68 countries in the world, and we specialize in high quality latex balloons. Our company is 100% family owned, and I've never worked in the company, but I've directed or been the head of the family council for more years than I can count. And I was member of the board of directors for 10 years. And for the purpose of our panel today, I should start by a brief description of my country. Colombia's population is a little over 51 million, and our country is not very large, and it's one of the richest countries in biodiversity. We have great coffee, emeralds, roses, and we are surrounded by 2 oceans. And yet we have more than 560,000 children suffering from chronic malnutrition. And more than 54% of our country is not sure if they're going to have more than 1 meal a day. So we have a very rich country with very few rich people. As many countries in the world, we have reduced job opportunities, and our country wastes more than 10 million tons of food a year. And why, I have no idea, and I don't have an answer for that, but I'm certainly hoping that I'm able to work out the math to solve some of the equation. And even though this topic is not very easy, it's very complex to talk about in a single panel, I'm going to streamline in 2 main concepts that give frame to my work. So I'm working in 2 main projects. One is changing the world one by one. And these are very low budget projects. And what I do is I generate aggregated value to objects that are used commonly. And these generate new opportunities of jobs. Under this project, I'm working in 5 women. And it sounds like little, but 5 women multiplies for 30 people. Then we have and this has just been released 3 weeks ago. And then now I have glamses, which are glamour glasses, and they're ordinary glasses that we design and intervene and make them glamorous. And they give a new opportunity of work for people who work in the beach. And then I'm very bad at synthesizing. And then I have Happy Birthday. And Happy Birthday, what we do is we convert just normal plain chicken feeders into beautiful bird feeders. And I think you can see some of them here in the back. And those are the one by one impact. And people might think that this is small, but this becomes huge because it multiplies. And then I have the most important project, which is my life project, really, which is the the first social gastronomic lab.
After strategy leadership at the university, teaches there. And very interestingly, she also directs a program on global innovation for impact, which may be of particular relevance in our discussions today. So, Professor Mayer, over to you.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you, CI, for the kind invitation. Doing that is particularly special to me as when I started doing research and develop knowledge around social entrepreneurship and social impact, social innovation, my first place to go was India. So I spent 15 years in the field, so to say, and I would never have been able to build up my knowledge base without the amazing examples that also exist in India. Just to put my background into perspective in this conversation, I think we are at a very interesting inflection point in our discussion and in the action around social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And my own background speaks to that. I was for 15 years a faculty member at a business school. I was first at INSEAD and then at the ESSE Business School. I moved to a public policy school 10 years ago for the reason that I saw efforts and me as an educator speaking about social entrepreneurship, we cannot leave the public sector out of this conversation, because if you simply think about scale, real impact at scale, we need to also bring in the government. And the second part, so this is basically my work also here in Europe. I'm currently talking from Berlin, but my second feat, so to say, is at Stanford in California, where I co-direct a research lab around global innovation for impact, as we just heard. But it's really a learning lab. So it's based at Stanford PACS, a research center at the heart of Stanford. But we really want to live up to the expectation that, especially in this domain, we need knowledge that is practically useful, but stands on the shoulders and on the feet of the knowledge that we have developed in very different disciplines, right? So it's our responsibility as researchers to make sure that we put and use the best of our knowledge. And the third leg for you to understand who is talking here is that 11 years ago, I took on a role as the academic editor of a magazine, Stanford Social Innovation Review. It's a magazine that covers the field of practice of social innovation, and it's a particular important role to me, as I am an academic, I am a scholar, but I deeply believe in the nexus of theory and practice. And serving as the academic editor of a magazine that considers itself a little bit of the guardian of the field. No? So my job is basically to make sure that we don't miss out on important conversation, but that we also make sure that we push forward with conversation, and might say, well, enough of one conversation. And the important part of my job is, you might wonder, why is she sitting here in Berlin studying social entrepreneurship in India and doing this in California? I truly believe that we need to have a global conversation on social innovation. We cannot have, let's say, the Silicon Valley gospel of social innovation. And this is why this conversation today is so meaningful. The inflection point that I mentioned before is because over these last 20 years, we managed to get out of looking at social entrepreneurship as this nice little thing to have, these nice little initiatives that we have. I'm also serving on the board of the Schwab Foundation associated with the World Economic Forum, and we have been really putting out there examples of social entrepreneurship for the last 20 years. And what we really see now is a collective action approach to it. So it's not anymore addressing societal challenges, environmental challenges. It's not anymore to be seen the business of social entrepreneurs. It's equally, as we heard, the business of business. It's equally the responsibility of governments. And it's also, let's not forget, citizens. There's so much potential, innovative potential in citizens. So this is why these next 10 years in social innovation will be surely under the tag of collective action. I'm delighted to be here and look forward to the interaction.
Thank you very much, Professor Meyer. And your thoughts on the need to partner between industry and citizens or civil society and those who create impact is all about partnerships, which is the theme of this summit. So I think it's very good. And your work on spreading social entrepreneurship, researching it, I'm sure is going to be extremely useful to all of us as we begin to move down this path quicker and faster. Thank you for your comments there. I want to move on to our next speaker, which is Ms. Moloney. She's the CEO of Points of Light, which is, I understand, probably the biggest volunteer organizing body and getting together volunteers from all over. I mean, social impact starts with volunteers and moves on. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, please.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here with these distinguished panelists. And Mr. Karnik, thank you for facilitating today. And thank you to all of the staff and leaders from CII. We're so happy and privileged to be here. This topic couldn't be more relevant to the time that we're all living in, as many of the panelists have talked through. From our perspective here at Points of Light, just to share a little bit about who we are and what we do, and then go into social entrepreneurship. We were founded in 1990 by President George H.W. Bush, and as a nonpartisan nonprofit organization. In 2007, Points of Light, so we're based here in the US, and Points of Light merged with another organization that had a collection of volunteer centers, and created this full umbrella organization that has a network for organizations who are trying to encourage people power to be used for our most pressing challenges around the world. And after that merger, the expansion to have a global network began. And so today we have 178 affiliates in 38 countries around the world, all with a common purpose to mobilize people to make change in their communities. One of our most distinguished affiliates is the I Volunteer organization in India, and so proud that they're part of the Points of Light family and proud of the impact that they have all over India. And so today, that network of affiliates sits in the middle of nonprofits, businesses, and individuals who want to do good in their communities. And we bring the power of companies and corporations to that, so that they can power that with the people power of those companies and the financial resources from those companies. So we see ourselves as a convener and a connector between nonprofits, people, and the for-profit sector. And as has been stated, looking at things with that holistic lens is going to be key to solving so many of our problems. And so each year, Points of Light Network and business partners engage about 5 million volunteers and 16 million hours of service. Through the pandemic, we've been able to mobilize people virtually and provide grants to keep much of the unneeded work in communities going. And we work with our corporate partners to make sure that they are connected with our local partners, to make sure the work that is being done is what's really needed most in that community. COVID in particular was a common experience around the world, but it had different impacts in different communities, and we saw different innovations spur across communities. And one of the benefits of being part of a global network is we were able to have the learnings from some locations that were early in their experience in the pandemic, in Hong Kong and China and other places, help inform our affiliates in the US and Europe and India and all over the world. And so that networked effect was something we try to cultivate. And one of the biggest trends that we've seen that I think is very aligned with the focus of this session is that we started with our roots in volunteerism, but people make change and focus on their passions in lots of different ways. And so we've come up with a framework now that we call the Civic Circle that outlines 9 different ways that people give back across their lifetime. And so they can volunteer and they can donate. And that's often been main two areas that people in the nonprofit sector have talked about. But many people become social entrepreneurs and combine work and their passion. Others use their work in places like Walmart to make sure that they're having an amazing impact and mobilizing where they work to drive positive change. People use their voice with social media. They vote and how they choose to use their purchase power sends a message to companies about the issues that they care about. And so all of those different ways are ways that at points of light where we started with just thinking about volunteerism, we're saying that's not how the world makes change. The world makes change by using all of these things together. And so we call that that Civic Circle an individual system for changing systems. And I think that's what's particularly amazing about social entrepreneurs is that they often are looking at things at a system level change, not satisfied with the symptoms treating work that they've often seen around them. And one Indian social entrepreneur we had the pleasure of having speak at a gathering, Anshu Gupta, who founded Gunj, really brought that home to many of our affiliates around the world, that you have to have an equitable relationship and dignity, mutual dignity, to make sure that an effort to change a system is done with the idea of the lasting impact that the community will really need for it to be sustained. So there's that mutual respect that is needed for change to happen. And we think looking at things through a social entrepreneur lens has one of the best vantage points to make sure that that structure is set up and flourishing in any community. And we also know that social entrepreneurs, by and large, 44% are female. Most of them are skew younger. In total, from our statistics, there's 3.2% of the world's population have started social ventures, and that's growing. And so it's just a trend of broadening your type of engagement. To do good is not to just volunteer. To do good is not just to donate money, but it's to weave it into every aspect of who you are and what you do, from your work to your community actions to how you use your voice at home with your kids and your families and your social network. And so we're very proud to be here and excited that Points of Light can be part of this dialogue and learn from so many of you.
Thank you, Ms. Mozzoni. Some very useful comments and thoughts on what we might do, particularly in relation to people power and mobilizing people. We will come back to that. Meanwhile, I want to move on to our next speaker, which is Ms. Priya Agarwal-Heber. She is the non-executive director of Vedanta, one of the world's leading natural resource companies. She's done a lot of work there in both HR and particularly in ESG, which is of direct interest to us, which is the environment, social, and the governance aspects. She is incidentally an animal lover who runs an animal welfare organization. Over to you, Ms. Heber.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Karnik. And such a wonderful, experience, such a wonderful opportunity for me to speak here today with such an esteemed panel of people on such an important subject. I think, the subject is vital in today's context, like everyone said. And we know the world needs some fixing. And I think social entrepreneurship is a key path to make that change. In context of India, I think the roots of India's growth story has evidently been social entrepreneurship. So I don't think social entrepreneurship in that sense is anything new. India and China were once, as we all know, in the 1400s, leaders in GDP growth. And post-invasion or colonial impact, India was left with no capital. We grew our country from a debt-based economy to where we are today. This couldn't have been achieved without social entrepreneurship being the base of everything that we did or do. Even a massive part of our country that is today working, in the unorganized sector, I think that's about 50% of our country right now, is a monumental example of social entrepreneurship. However, today in a global context, we're making more apparent and structuring this notion of social entrepreneurship. And I mean, we see entrepreneurs across age groups who have started thinking about profit making as a byproduct of social development rather than the other way around, which is fantastic. To help, as you're aware, even the UN has defined 17 Sustainable Development Goals that are key to support the world today. And beyond entrepreneurship, I think it's in fact upon each and every one of us to contribute towards these pressing requirements in any little way that we possibly can. I think what's even more wonderful is that today's youth is so motivated by social change that we've seen studies where youth decide to work in companies depending upon how responsible they are. And another thing with the topic of ESG, today companies are valued by investors on their ESG focus. And I think all of this change is only going to be positive. I think the future is looking very positive if all of this really is the way forward to drive change. I think in Vedanta's context, the spirit of social entrepreneurship is built into the business model of Vedanta. We know responsible growth with large social impact is key. And with that in mind, we have not only ensured a carbon neutral goal by 2050, but we've already impacted positively the lives of 46 million people, and with an aim to reach 100 million in the near future. Our chairman, Anil Agarwal, his vision has been to build a company with the core purpose of nation building. Something my grandfather always told us, that the two most important things to remember for success is artha and dharma. Artha means value creation, and dharma is to use that value for social prosperity. Without giving both equal importance, and he really emphasized on that, we cannot achieve success. So, with that teaching, with that sort of rooted teaching, everything that our chairman envisions to do is working towards creating a positive impact in India's growth story. May it be boosting manufacturing, may it be the Atmanirbhar Bharat that we all talk about, where we work towards import reduction, or our flagship social initiatives like the Nanghar project, which aims to impact the lives of 8 crore children and 2 crore women. We have various successful partnerships as well, since that's key to today's topic. 2 successful partnerships for the Nanghar program is the Bill Gates Foundation, who've partnered with us in educating all the in implementing e-education in all the Nanghars that we have in UP, and the Andre Agassi Foundation, who's helping us do the same in a different variety of states. Another few examples of Vedanta's social entrepreneurship journey is that from the very beginning, Vedanta outsources most of its operations, which has been a conscious decision to help small and mid-sized entrepreneurs. We also have the Vedanta Spark project. By next year, we will be piloting projects with over 1,000 startups who will not only be investing, who we will not be only investing in, but these are startups who we will use within our framework to help us grow in our ESG and technology-related initiatives. Another another project very close to my heart is animal welfare. We hope to we coexist with animals in India like no other country in the world. And we need to create an ecosystem for One Health. And I think the importance of One Health has really come across or shines through with the pandemic. So we look to create a hub and spoke model, a hub with the best in care, one of its kind ecosystem for veterinary medication, sheltering, education, and research on One Health. And we hope to implement this in spokes across and have partners, hopefully partnering and implementing the same across the country. I think overall social entrepreneurship is growing rapidly in size, scope, and support. I think unprecedented number of organizations, like everyone has mentioned here, are using the strategy to address social problems. And I think many of these projects are improving people's health, safeguarding the environment, and creating more economic opportunities. So I think very important subject, and absolutely wonderful, that we have so many people here keen on talking about this and making a change. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heber. Wonderful that you brought in this combination of artha and dharma, and also the fact that you mentioned social entrepreneurship and how it's taken India forward. And I must mention in passing that social entrepreneurship really began in many ways in this country, even pre-independence. In many ways, Mahatma Gandhi, who began with, as many of you would know, the spinning wheel, and spinning yarn and making what is called khadi, which is handmade cloth, which is now a huge industry in India with handmade cloth going all over. But more on that later. Let me quickly move to our next and last speaker, which is Ms. Otara Gunwardene. She's the founder director of the Otara Foundation and Embark. So I'd leave it to her to speak more about that and tell us, share her thoughts with us. Over to you. I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here amongst this distinguished panel. And of course, I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm based in Sri Lanka. I've lived almost all my life in Sri Lanka, and everything I've done business-wise and entrepreneurship-wise has been in Sri Lanka. So very briefly about myself, I started a company from the boot of my car 30 years ago. It was a fashion business. I started selling garments to other smaller stores in Sri Lanka, and then I set up Sri Lanka's largest department store, and eventually became about 18 department stores. And then it was a company that I listed. I was the first woman to take a company public in Sri Lanka. And of course, I had a lot of people that I worked with very closely to develop the business, which included a lot of small businesses as well, which were able to grow together with me, and which is something that I love doing. From the very beginning, I always believe in supporting and creating awareness and working to help the community, both with environmental awareness and also animal welfare. So it's something very close to my heart to protect and be a voice for animals. I also started a program called Embark, which is to help the street dogs of Sri Lanka. It came together with a fashion brand, which I used to raise funds to help the street dogs. And I wanted to make them fashionable to own and to make them more accepted in society, because they faced a lot of cruelty in our country. And over 14 years, we've helped over 80,000 street dogs and created a better life for many, and also made them a part of people's lives and homes, and so that people choose to adopt instead of buying dogs. 7 years ago, I sold my company Odell. The retail company was called Odell, and I sold the company and then spent several years being an advocate for environmental protection and animal welfare, and of course continuing my work with Embark. But my love for helping small businesses and other entrepreneurs continued. And last year, I started a company called Who We Are, which is a platform that sells products from small businesses in Sri Lanka, plus individuals. And it's an online retail platform. And at the moment, there are about 400 people and small companies online selling their products. I call it a conscious lifestyle, the Sri Lankan way, because I believe that is the future. And what we need to do in the future is to create a holistic lifestyle of where environment, animals, and people are equally valued. The platform doesn't sell any products that harm animals. It's cruelty-free, and it's also planet conscious, where we don't sell things that are environmentally unfriendly. So a lot of people in the last year or two actually lost their jobs and faced many challenges with the pandemic. But it was also a time where a lot of them discovered that they had a lot of talent that they didn't know they had while they were working in bigger companies. And a lot of them became very successful, very creative, and made very, very beautiful products. And it is with a lot of people like that I started working with to help them to promote their products and to help them reach a larger audience in Sri Lanka, and also internationally. We ship internationally as well. So it's only 1 year, but it's going quite well, and it's something that I hope to expand on. I believe that Sri Lanka needs to be a lot stronger in products made in Sri Lanka, and also to retail things more consciously, to create a conscious consumer that cares for the planet and cares for animals and cares for people, and also a consumer that supports small businesses in Sri Lanka. So that's really where I'm at the moment, and I'll keep it very brief because I think the time is running out, and you can always ask me questions along the way.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gunawardene. What a journey as an entrepreneur, tremendous. And so interesting that, well, I'm sure all of us love animals, that you and Ms. Luebbe both are working actually active in that area for animal welfare.
Absolutely.
I'm sure I have some questions on that and get to both of you on that. But I want to start our questions. I know we're behind time. So, if I may, I would request brief answers so we can try and get more questions across and then get the audience in. But I want to start with a question to Ms. Mckenna. If I can ask you about inclusion. I know this is something on which you are personally very committed, but also I'm aware that Walmart has made commitments regarding diversity and inclusion. Maybe you can tell us briefly a little bit about how and what is being done in the business to ensure this kind of diversity and inclusion.
Thank you. I shall try and be brief, as this is an absolute passion of mine, and being brief sometimes is a little tricky on this subject. But diversity for me is how you have teams that are made up of cultures, backgrounds, abilities, and perspectives. But inclusion is about how you bring that to life within a team and create environments where everybody to participate. And we believe that to be true wherever we operate in the world. And you can ask my team, I talk about this all the time. I actually think there's a real business angle to this as well, which is reinforced for us during the pandemic, which is the more resilient a business is in general, the more diverse and inclusive teams are. And if you think about resilience as its ability to bounce back from setbacks and adapt to change, and when you've got that kind of diverse perspective in teams, they really bring that to life. So never been more important, in my view, again, not just from a social impact perspective, but actually from a business perspective as well. Perhaps briefly, two areas that we're doing work in, although we work in this area right across the spectrum. In India, we know that increasing participation of women in the workforce is incredibly important. So we're trying to create environments where they can find jobs, where they can be successful and grow and develop, and they feel included and supported. One of the great stories from Flipkart is they have a program where they're creating special women-only shifts in their supply chain hubs, these small micro distribution centers. Those shifts are for women only, and there's one of them in Chennai that we were hearing about recently, and they call them the Chennai Super Queens. And by the way, if you work in an American business, having to explain cricket to somebody is quite tricky, but that's the Chennai Super Queens, who just an amazing concept to do that. And we're increasing that around the country as well. Both Flipkart and PhonePe are introducing flexible policies to retain women, including parental leave, both for men and for women, both of which actually are important for the family. So lots happening in the diversity space for gender. But the other type of diversity, which I'm personally passionate about, and I chair a group on this, is for people with disabilities. They are an incredibly important community and group, and we need to accelerate inclusion in this area more globally. One of the things I've been really proud of for the work in India is some of the work again in supply chain, which, remember, supply chain touches every part of a country, is we've created a new delivery hub in New Delhi, which is managed end to end by 50 employees with disabilities. We're learning from that model. We're doing sensitization sessions, special classroom training, on-the-job training with help of sign language interpreters to help train people for that. Supply chain should be facilities that are accessible for everybody, and I think that's another area that's absolutely critical for us as well. You can probably hear how passionate I am about this. This is a subject where you have to be passionate about it, you have to talk about it, you have to measure it, and you have to act on it. Because we know what gets measured does get managed in this world, and it's a journey that needs constant reinforcement. But I believe there's a huge social benefit from this, as well as a huge business benefit as well.
Thank you. I think, both your passion and the subject itself deserves a special session, which CII should do sometime just on this. But, you mentioned diversity and employment of women and all the things you're doing on that. But Ms. Heber, I want to come to you and ask you that one aspect of diversity is in the business, employing people. The other aspect is how do you help women entrepreneurs who are not part of your business, but who are part of your overall ecosystem or separately. So your thoughts on women entrepreneurship and what can be done, what should be done, maybe what you're doing. Can you unmute, please? We seem to have lost your audio. Oh, maybe we'll get back to you because your audio, I hope you can hear us. We just get back to you. Maybe you can try and get it fixed. Ms. Gunnar, I want to continue on not this theme, but you might say diversity in its broadest area. Diversity is certainly within our employees or entrepreneurs, the people who are there, but it might include, why not animals? After all, we say one word and that includes all of us. So Ms. Gunnar, you talked about animal welfare. I know you're interested in that. What is the linkage that you see between animal welfare, the environment, and the people in what you do? What can we do to sort of integrate and help all three? Oops, can't hear you either. Is this?
I just forgot to unmute, so
okay.
sorry. I've always believed, and I still believe, that we are not separate from each other. I think we've built a world in the past where we've sort of isolated humans from the impact that we have on the environment, and also the pain and the suffering and the disease and many other things that we create for issues that we create for animals. And I think it's only once we realize that we have to live harmoniously by protecting all three that we can really thrive as a planet, as people, and as a world as well. So which is why for me, from the very beginning, I'm actually a biologist that became an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. But it's something I've had in me for many years since my childhood. And I think it's very important that we value both people and animals equally. And in some countries, especially like Sri Lanka, unfortunately, there are still a lot of lack of laws and situations where animals, their rights are not valued and they're not protected very well. So which is why I decided to be an advocate to help make change, greater change in that area. Yes, I think it's very important for us with everything that we do, with business, with life, with to understand how we impact the lives of other beings that live with us on this planet. And it is the only way I think that we know today a lot of the issues we're having with climate change, a lot of environmental impact on many countries, on many people's lives, and which is actually increasing over the years. It's not decreasing. And as such, we really need to change the way we live and the way we do business and the way we, and our day-to-day lifestyles. And I think that is happening, and it is, the momentum is changing and it is growing. But I think all of us, each one of us, and everyone who's also part of big businesses, small businesses, needs to keep that top of mind now and try to be aware of what we do and with everything that we do in business and life to keep environment and animals also in mind. And I think it is only then that we will see a lot of great change happening and a lot of great benefit for both people and animals.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we are indeed in a race, especially in the climate area, between survival and how quickly we can get to sustainable and not get to a 2-degree temperature rise. Ms. Heber, is your audio on? I hope it is now.
Am I
Oh,
audible?
lovely, lovely. Can we talk of women entrepreneurs briefly and what you might be doing or your thoughts on it?
Sure. So I think generally 50% of our country, women, or the world for that matter, imagine fueling their potential, right? So women being equal breadwinners for the family can really speed up positive growth, maybe 2 times faster, 10 times faster. And I think a few of the examples of how we are driving women entrepreneurs is one through Nandghar. We're training women to, on skills depending upon the state they're in, what's most necessary for them to, be able to expand their knowledge and gain profit in that area. One such example I can give you is a lady named Pavna Devi, who we helped via one of the Nandghars and trained her to do tailoring. She had about 12 people in her family living together, none of which were employed or had any work. Her husband lost his job due to the pandemic, and they couldn't feed even one meal to their family, and it was really bad. And she learned about the Nandghar and started learning how to tailor at the Nandghar. And today, just in a span of 1 year, she's learned how to tailor, and in wedding season, she's earning 25,000, 30,000 rupees a month for her family. And not only that, she's become an entrepreneur, and she has trained all the women around her in the community to do the same. So I think that's just one example of how we can boost the potential. There's so much that women can do even sitting at home. We know that women, especially in India, have constraints about going out and working, which of course should change over time. But at least while at home, there are so many different opportunities that can be given to women to expand their horizon. Look at, for example, when I graduated from university, the first thing I did was wanting to make a change in animal welfare. I sat at home and made a digital Facebook group for the awareness, and overnight that group had 200,000 followers, literally in a month. And all it did was automate the process of animal welfare. People would report a case of animal cruelty or injury somewhere, and someone else would attend to it through the group. So there's so much opportunity with Digital India as well, with that women can make use of and build their entrepreneurship journey on as well. And in an extension to that, now across all Nandghars, we're training women to take care of farm animals and to medically take care of them, which will boost the farmers' income, which will help cattle produce, for a longer amount of time. And I think just to build that ecosystem, that sense of care, that I think it's all very important. I think women can play a very, very big role in that.
Thank you, Ms. Heber. And I think a good point you bring out there is how women who are forced for one reason or other, sometimes for unfortunate reasons, to be at home, can use technology, and you can train them to get things done. Very, very good. We've talked of social impact, and Professor Meyer, I want to ask you this question based on all your research. Is there a basic difference between those who work in the social area and those who are business-minded? We are trying to combine the two here. So, does that work? Is it possible? Is this a rare exception who has social conscience and wants to do something, and yet has the entrepreneurial streak and a business sense? So maybe something from your research or your thoughts on this, just briefly, a few comments.
Thank you for this question, and if you allow me, I take it away from the individual. Now we have associated social entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurs with the individual, and we have also organizations that celebrate the ethical fiber of these people. But I think it's time that we move away from actually associating it just with individuals, because it's also unfair to those individuals, because we overburden with them, they have to change the world. No, we all need to be part of changing the world. So let me address your question about in a more provocative way. I think we need to get used to the idea that social and profit do not necessarily exclude each other. Even the not-for-profit term that we use to describe specific types of organization. That doesn't mean the organization cannot make a profit. It means that they cannot distribute those profits. That's a very clear distinction. Now, let me go back to your question, and in order to also see that, make sure that we all that I take you with in my way of thinking. For me, social entrepreneurship is really addressing a social problem that is not addressed effectively in new ways, right? And very often we apply market-based activities with that. But there are some problems where we can develop solutions that then become part of the product or the service that where we have a willingness to pay for this product and service and the ability to pay for that. So for example, housing and microfinance, there is a little ability to pay for that service. And yet you have other problems, and I'm thinking now we are in the midst of a pandemic, I'm thinking about access to medicines. For sure, people would be willing to pay, but they are not able to pay, right? So they're making a profit is really, really difficult. No, so in some to address some problems, you simply cannot make a profit. And the third example that I want to make, and then we have heard it also from the conversation around systems change, Otara mentioned it as well, the efforts around advocacy. If your objective is really to change a system or to focus on the institutional repair work we often need in our economy and in our society, also there making a profit, developing and organizing a business model with making a profit is really difficult. So my own take on this distinction between a social and profit is let's try to overcome this as a dichotomy. And to answer your question, so do we see differences between those who basically are social founders or for-profit funders? I think you see it when they act, when they make decisions, because running a social enterprise, a social business, whatever you call it, requires decision making and includes trade-offs. It's when you make the priority pursuing the social objective at the expense of actually generating a profit, distributing a profit, then you actually have your distinction between a social and a for-profit funder. It's really in the action where we can see the difference.
Great point. I think it's so true that let's not differentiate between the two, but in action, it tells you where the person is coming from. It's true. And a related question, let me put this to you, Ms. Maloney. What are the two factors that drive people to volunteer? You deal with so many volunteers. What gets these people to give up time, to make the effort, to come and volunteer for something?
It's a great question. One of the things that we do have data on is that it's still, in today's world, the number one reason people start volunteering is because someone else asked them. Volunteering and giving back is often a social, communal activity. You don't usually care about an issue in isolation. I think is evidence of the amazing growth of that Facebook page to 200,000 in a month. It's you tap into something that other people are also feeling, and then you do things together. So the number one reason people start is because people asked, which we take to mean that those who are willing to put themselves out there and ask other people they know to volunteer have the greatest potential for impact. They can be an accelerator and a multiplier of impact because they're willing to ask their networks and to join them in a cause. The next thing that we know for sure is that people continue to volunteer, and as you kind of stated in the beginning, volunteering is giving of your time which is the resource we all have the exact same amount. If you are the leader of a country or a student, you have 24 hours in a day, and you have 24 hours to figure out how you want to use your time. And so when someone gives an hour or uses an hour to join with their community members to make a difference, that is a tremendous sharing of a resource. And so to do it again, so the number one reason they get started is because they were asked, but the number one reason they come back is because they have confidence that they've had a positive impact with their time, and that their time meant something in their community. And so that's what we see all the time with our affiliates is that people want to get started. They don't often know how. And so if someone asks them, that's their entryway into the how. But anyone who takes initiative to get started will quickly find others who are like them and passionate about that cause. And that the most important thing we can do for those of us who are running an organization or a community effort trying to make progress on a mission is to make sure that that experience is clearly connected to the impact. So if you are writing letters to advocate for something, make sure everybody knows exactly what it means for each of those letters, to be sent. If you're doing community cleanup, then you can visually see it and bring home to the participants the impact that cleanup will have for the larger community over time. So recognizing the impact helps ensure that people will come back and give their time again. So those are what we say is the kind of top two reasons people start volunteering, and then the reason they stay volunteering and doing other efforts that put their passion into action.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. I think that explains from your experience what really happens. We're really running out of time, almost run out of time, but I do want to ask one question to Ms. Luivi. I know she had some problem and the electricity was off, but Ms. Luivi, if you're back on, are you back on? Oops, I think she's not. Well, on behalf of the audience, this is surprising, and to me, not so surprising, but audiences want to have their say and want to have a question. Here I've got some feedback from a couple of people in the audience who say, please go on, we'll skip our questions because this is interesting. We want to hear the speakers. And I agree with them. Love to hear all of you. I've spoken too much, but want to hear all of you. But before we get to closing, and we just have a few minutes more, I do want to ask one question more to you, Ms. Mckenna. And this question is in many ways on behalf of the audience. And they would want to know, particularly the audience in India, but maybe to others elsewhere in the globe, it might have relevance. You talked of how you're doing things and want to take India to the world. Maybe you can tell us something about what does it take for a micro or small enterprise to be world ready. This could be in India, it could be specific to India, but if you want to broaden it, there's, as I said, audiences from around the world, they would be interested in knowing that if I'm a small business person or even a micro one, what do I need to do? What does it really take to be able to take my products out to the world? You provide the channel, but what do I need to do?
Yeah, I think there is a commonality around the world here, because to grow a business, you've got to have a vision, you've got to have a great product. Eventually, you need access to financing, and you need know-how on how to scale. You've got to make connections, build networks, and probably most importantly is be customer-centric. And that's really what gets you world ready, I think. Increasingly, it helps to be digitally savvy. Lets you be more efficient and competitive and use data for insights. And that lets you improve customer service and be resilient wherever it's thrown at you. And I think those facts are true for everybody. I think in India in particular, we've talked about this entrepreneurial spirit. A few people have mentioned this, some of the incredible work that is being done here. And one of the things that we believe we can bring to the party is to help people understand how to get world ready, that making India for the world. And I think helping people work through kind of demand shortages, resilience of products, supply chain certainty, what products around the world people are wanting to create is one of the ways that we can lean in and help this. And we want to, continue to do that. It's particularly for global sourcing for us. I talked about that 10 billion commitment. We need people to meet international standards. We need to understand that people need to supply chains that they can rely on. Again, our expertise here can help. But those first things that I talked about, which was the entrepreneurial spirit, the ability to really have a vision, a business plan, and that desire to succeed is so important in this. And I think there are lots of people around the world ready and willing to lean in, as you've heard from so many people here, to help those businesses be successful.
Thank you. I think that will be a great help to many in the audience. It will, and requires passion, as you said, requires commitment, and then requires some other qualities which you can have. Okay, I do think we're out of time. I want a couple of minutes to just round this up. But before that, and with the permission of our CII host, if any of you have a two-sentence addition, a critical thing, a thought, some pearls of wisdom which you would like to leave, certainly me, but the rest of our audience with, would love that.
Maybe I would just say thank you. It's been a fascinating panel. I've got loads of notes from everybody, so I've really appreciated it. Maybe three things that are important for me in this conversation. The first is the need to be innovative in the way and using technology to help in this space. The second is partnership, and the way that, especially for us as a large business, need partners to help us on that journey. And then thirdly, this concept of doing good in the world has to be embedded in an organization. It can't be something that you just do as a project. It has to be part of the DNA, and you have to care deeply about it. So just fantastic panelists. Thank you for the great moderating. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ms. McKenna. Ms. Luebbe, I'm sorry we lost you, and I know power problems, but anyone want to add a sentence or two more? Okay.
Just from my side, very briefly.
Please go ahead, Ms. President.
I think this was such a lovely panel and such an important panel to place these types of conversations also in the larger conversation that happened these couple of days is super important. Thank you for that.
Okay, so just a couple of points which I sort of jotted down, which to me resonated and stuck in my head a great deal. Certainly, as we look at social impact on entrepreneurship, it's critical to look at it from the point of view of the business as a whole, and what is the social impact that business can create while you're doing business. So it's not something you do as a responsibility separately, as corporate responsibility, or through some of your do-gooding initiatives and volunteers from your organization. Those are great and necessary, but what is the impact you create through your own business, and how can you maximize that? Be it with your employees, your suppliers, your distributors, anybody in your ecosystem, certainly the community around you, and indeed, particularly for big organizations, for the country. And I heard some of you saying that, particularly Ms. Heber, you did, and Ms. McKenna, you mentioned the countrywide impact. Both of you had very large organizations which have a tremendous impact, certainly in India, but globally. So I think that's an important point to keep in mind, that what impact does business itself make? And this can be as true for a small business as for a big one, though the ecosystem around them may be smaller. The other point I picked up is something which is, of course, a cliche, but I love it because it expresses it so well. What can you do where you can do good and yet do well? What can you do to create an impact and yet make a profit? And this is a big challenge for all businesses. And I've been fortunate to be in situations where we've been able to do that, and it's possible. So it's not a pipe dream or something vague and thing. I think it's important. The third point I picked up, particularly in our discussion on animals and other things, is something we're all aware of, that we live in one world. We may have boundaries, there are geographies, there are countries, there's sovereignty, there are communities, there are states, there are all kinds of divides between us, and yet it's one world. And if we don't take care of it, all these divides will not matter because we will not exist. And whether it's climate change or other calamities, some of which are local, some of which are larger, some of which are global. We need to worry about them collectively. And there, the social consciousness and the social impact is critical, because most of the calamities facing us, if not all of them, are man-made, directly or indirectly. And so I think it's up to us to see what we can do to create that. And then some specifics, which I won't dwell on, which we picked up on entrepreneurship, on social impact, on how we can take it there, the use of technology, certainly for women, but certainly to create inclusion and to spread things outside, the importance of volunteering, lots of issues, the importance of academia and the research that's done to be able to help to take this forward, people on the ground who are doing things. And, we missed out, as I said, from Miss Zoe, and she cut off, but great to hear what the stuff she's doing, from balloon maker to everything else. So sorry we missed you in between there. And
we had a power shut here. I am very, very sorry. I was trying to connect all the time.
Happens. I spoke earlier of technology and its glitches. Fortunately, it was another form of technology, an older one. So electricity, not the net, but that's good. Finally, the importance of partnerships. I think everybody mentioned that, directly or indirectly, how we need to work together across countries, across other boundaries, across divides of all kinds, but also a partnership between the government and industry, between government, industry, and the civil society or citizens, and certainly with academia. I think these partnerships are key to moving forward. Great deal of learning, cross-fertilization, something which all of us can benefit from, whether it's in our business or in our social work, or just as individual citizens. So how can we partner and work together in doing this to both empower others and empower ourselves? So on that note, we've 3 minutes or 4 minutes over time. Want to thank each one of you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your great comments. And, as I said, this could go on all day and I wouldn't be satisfied for one. I think the same is true for our audience. My apologies to our participants in the audience. We would have loved to try and get more questions, but we ran out of time. And as I said, I got at least some comments saying, please let the speakers go on. Our questions are second priority. Very kind of whoever from the audience who told me that. But thank you. And once again, thank each one of you. It's been a delightful session. And I hope that you stay safe. Those of you who are traveling, I don't think anybody have a good journey back. If not, stay safe at home and take care. Goodbye. Thank you. Varun, over to you if you want to just close off.
Thank you everyone for taking time out and being on the wonderful panel. It was great listening to all of you all, and thank you, Kiran sir, for moderating this. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you. Thank you, audience, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Goodbye to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.